Jaya Radha Madhava Jabihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Sodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jamuna Tiravanachari Jamuna Tiravanachari Radha Madhava Kunjabihari Radha Madhava Kunjabihari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jamuna Tiravanachari Jamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabihari Jayam Shnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajapacharya Asto Parasata Srisma Charanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajapacharya Asto Parasata Srisma Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada Ki Sri Gaura Tai Ki Sri Radha Govardhana Dari Ki Sri Krishna Balaram Sri Giriraj Govardhana Ki Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Jai Ho. All right. Nandu, would you mind just grabbing me the book, please, the CC, and then I can... thank you. Krishna. It should be open at the page, yes, that we're on to today. We're starting a new chapter of Caitanya Caritamrta today, everyone. Hari Bo. And this is the last chapter of the Adi Leela. And it's a long chapter. It has 336 verses, chapter 17. And then we'll go to the Madhya Leela. So, Omagana Timarandasya Ginanjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unminitam Jena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my spiritual master very kindly come, forced open my eyes with the torchlight of transcendental knowledge. I offer my most respectful obeisances unto his lotus feet. Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. All right, so we will read the introduction, Srila Prabhupada's introduction to this chapter, and then text 1. This chapter is entitled The Pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in His Youth, chapter 17. The 17th chapter, as summarized by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his Amrita Pravaha Bhasya, describes Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes from his 16th year until the time he accepted the renounced order of life. Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur has already vividly described these pastimes in the Chaitanya Bhagavat. Therefore, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami describes them only briefly. Vivid descriptions of some portions of his pastimes are seen in this chapter. However, because Vrindavan Das Thakur has not elaborately described them. In this chapter, we shall find descriptions of the Mango Distribution Festival and Lord Chaitanya's discourses with Chand Kazi. Finally, the chapter shows that the same son of Mother Jasoda, Lord Krishna, tasted 4 transcendental mellows of devotional service in his form of Sachinandan, the son of Mother Sachi. To understand Srimati Radharani's ecstatic love for him, Lord Sri Krishna assumed the form of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The attitude of Srimati Radharani is considered the super excellent devotional mentality. As Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Krishna himself assumed the position of Srimati Radharani to taste her ecstatic situation. No one else could do this. When Sri Krishna assumed the form of the 4-armed Narayan, the gopis showed their respect, but they were not very much interested in him. In the ecstatic love of the gopis, all worshipable forms but Krishna are rejected. Among all the gopis, Srimati Radharani has the highest ecstatic love. When Krishna, in his form of Narayan, saw Radharani, he could not keep his position as Narayan, and again he assumed the form of Krishna. The king of Brajabhumi is Nanda Maharaj, and the same person in Navadvip is Jagannath Mishra, the father of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Similarly, Mother Jasoda is the queen of Brajabhumi, and in the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, she is Sachi Mata. Therefore, the son of Sachi is the son of Jasoda. Sri Nityananda occupies an ecstatic portion of parental love in servitude and fraternal attraction. Sri Advaita Prabhu exhibits the ecstasy of both fraternity and servitude. All the Lord's other associates situated in their original love engage in the service of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The same absolute truth who enjoys as Krishna, Shama Sundar, who plays his flute and dances with the gopis, sometimes takes birth in a Brahmana family and plays the part of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, accepting the renounced order of life. It appears contradictory that the same Krishna accepted the ecstasy of the gopis, and of course this is very difficult for an ordinary person to understand. But if we accept the inconceivable energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we can understand that everything is possible. There is no need of mundane arguments in this connection because mundane arguments are meaningless arguments in regard to inconceivable potency. In the end of this 17th chapter, Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, following in the footsteps of Srila Vyasadeva, has analysed all the Adi Lila pastimes separately. So text 1, everyone. There we are. We're good? Getting clear, we are? All right. Vande Swarad Buddheham Tam Caitanyam Yat Prasadata Yavana Sumana Yante Krishna Nama Prajalpaka Vande Swarad Bhuteham Tam Caitanyam Yat Prasadataha Yavana Sumana Yante Krishna Nama Prajalpakaha Ladies, anyone want to try? That's okay. Vande, let me offer my obeisances. Sarya, completely independent. Adbhuta, and uncommon. Iham, whose activities. Tam, unto him. Caitanyam, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, Yat, of whom, Prasadataha, by the mercy, Yavanaha, even the unclean, Sumanayante, are transformed into gentlemen. Krishna Nama, of the holy name of Lord Krishna. Prajalpaka, taking to the chanting, taking to the chanting. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Let me offer my respectful obeisances to Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, by whose mercy even unclean Yavanas become perfectly well-bred gentlemen by chanting the holy name of the Lord. Such is the power of Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Please repeat. Let me offer my respectful obeisances to Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, by whose mercy even unclean Yavanas become perfectly well-bred gentlemen by chanting the holy name of the Lord. Such is the power of Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Purport. There is a persistent misunderstanding between caste Brahmanas and advanced Vaishnavas or Goswamis, because caste Brahmanas or Smartas are of the opinion that one cannot become a Brahmana unless he changes his body. As we have discussed several times, it is to be understood that by the supremely powerful potency of the Lord, as described by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, everything is possible. Caitanya Mahaprabhu is as fully independent as Krishna. Therefore, no one can interfere with his activities. If he wants, by his mercy, he can convert even a Yavana, an unclean follower of non-Vedic principles, into a perfectly well-behaved gentleman. This is actually happening in our propagation of the Krishna consciousness movement. The members of the present Krishna consciousness movement were not born in India, nor do they belong to the Vedic culture. But within the short time of 4 or 5 years, they have become such wonderful devotees, simply by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, that even in India they are well received as perfectly well-behaved Vaishnavas wherever they go. Although less intelligent men cannot understand it, this is the special power of Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Actually, the body of a Krishna-conscious person changes in many ways. Even in the United States, when our devotees chant on the street, American ladies and gentlemen inquire from them whether they are actually Americans, because no one could expect Americans to become such nice devotees all of a sudden. Even Christian priests are greatly surprised that all these boys from Jewish and Christian families have joined this Krishna consciousness movement. Before joining, they never regarded any principles of religion seriously, but now they have become sincere devotees of the Lord. Everywhere people express this astonishment, and we take great pride in the transcendental behavior of our students. Such wonders are possible, however, only by the mercy of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. They are not ordinary or mundane. Translation again. Let me offer my respectful obeisances to Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, by whose mercy even unclean Yavanas become perfectly well-bred gentlemen by chanting the holy name of the Lord. Such is the power of Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. So before attempting to say anything this morning, everyone, we have a correction. The last time we spoke, we said something incorrect. It was really hot. We had the fans on, and I was, So just to set the record straight, we wanted to go back, because straight after the class, I realized, that's not right. And we do our best to fact check before preparing our classes, but sometimes we drift off onto another subject and that we haven't researched recently, and this was regarding Swarup Damodar. And I did say correctly that Swarup Damodar Goswami, I should have remembered that, was a lifelong renunciant, but then he never officially took sannyas. That was incorrect. He did officially take sannyas. So I thought to set the record straight, and not wanting to offend the lotus feet of one of Mahaprabhu's most intimate associates, his personal secretary in his Puri pastimes. When Purushottam Acharya, who was Swarup Damodar in his former family name, and was a resident of Nadia, heard that Nimai Pandit, Vishvambara Mishra, had taken sannyas, he went temporarily, transcendentally mad for a short time. When he came back to external consciousness, he decided, I will also take sannyas. So he left Nadia and journeyed to Varanasi, where since time immemorial there have always been many renunciants and spiritual aspirants. And he approached one venerable sannyasi by the name of Caitanya Ananda Swami. Nice name, eh? Caitanya Ananda. And he begged this venerable sannyasi, you please ordain me, initiate me into the renounced order of life, sannyas. So such is the etiquette. One cannot just take sannyas oneself. One has to take that order from another sannyasi. So And we know in Vedic civilization there are different samskaras, which one meaning of which is impression. Just like at the time of initiations or marriages, which are generally done in a sacred environment in front of deities, Vaishnavas, gurus, sacred fire. Quite often different shastras are being recited at that time. That leaves a really powerful impression, or it should do, on the consciousness that this is serious and this is what I'm vowing to do now for the rest of my life. So his name was changed, as is the custom. He was given the name Swarup, which is interesting. Some say that Mahaprabhu added the Damodar. He became famous from that point on as Swarup Damodar Goswami. And he was told by his sannyas guru, Caitanya Ananda Swami, to always study Vedanta and teach it to others. And he did that. Because amongst Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's confidential associates, Swarup Damodar and Rupa Goswami and the other Goswamis, but probably those two, Swarup Damodar Goswami and Rupa Goswami, and Sanatan Goswami, the list goes on. Gopal Bhatta Goswami. They are all vastly learned, great scholars of all the Vedic philosophies and traditions. But it's well known that when Mahaprabhu relocated to Jagannath Puri, Swarup Damodar also followed the Lord there and became his secretary. And no devotee could present anything they had written for Lord Chaitanya's perusal without it first being checked by Swarup Damodar. Mahaprabhu was very attentive to what is known as a rasa basa. Rasa basa means overlapping of mellows or conflicting moods in bhakti. And there are many pastimes which we will read when we get to the Madhya Leela of close encounters where devotees came from Bengal and did want to present their poems or their commentaries to Mahaprabhu, but Swarup Damodar would check them first, and if they were not up to the standard, then they would be rejected. So he was such a scholar, Swarup Damodar Goswami. And it's interesting that Mahaprabhu also never accepted a big sannyasi title. He was given the name Sri Krishna Chaitanya. There are different sannyas titles, which approximately 10 in number, which have become very common since the time of Sripad Shankaracharya. Names like Puri, or Tirtha or Ashram, which designate in some ways where that sannyasi preferred to reside. Some sannyasis like to go to the Himalayas. Some like to go to the forests. Some do like to stay in towns or villages and preach. Everyone's different. But neither Mahaprabhu nor Swarup Damodar accepted a big sannyasi. They kept what is referred to as their brahmachari names. And it's said that because the philosophy of Advaitavad propounded by Shankaracharya was so popular at the time, especially in North India and even Bengal, that it appears that Swarup Damodar also accepted that type of sannyas. And there are many different customs and protocols and rituals depending on the sampradaya that one takes the renounced order in. But it appears at least that was the case, and his head was shaven completely, no sikha, and also the Brahman thread was renounced, going beyond even Brahmanism in sannyas. So we hope that's cleared at that. We usually try to remember to call for not only questions or comments, but also corrections. But this, we can segue to a little bit some other interesting facts we came up with regarding, which is the final portion of this chapter, Mahaprabhu's leaving Nadia, which was very traumatic for all the Lord's devotees there, and relocating to Jagannath Puri. And Keshava Bharati Maharaj, Lord Chaitanya's sannyas guru, he has been described as the incarnation of Akrura in Gaura Lila, in Gaura Ganadesh Deepika, because Akrura, we all know, took Krishna and Balaram out of Vrindavan. On the order of Kamsa, Akrura, his name is supposed to mean not cruel, but the residents in Vrindavan considered him the most cruel-hearted person because he came and he took Krishna and Balaram away to Mathura. On the order of Kamsa, because Kamsa was having a difficult time, an impossible time, killing the two lords in Vrindavan. Even he had sent many of his demoniac friends, one demon after another, into Vrindavan to try and kill the two divine personalities. They were unsuccessful. They got killed. So Kamsa thought, let me invite these two lads who were only approximately 11 years of age at the time. They appeared to be a few years older, because when Krishna appears, he ages quicker than normal mere mortals. So they appeared to be like maybe 13, 14, 15-year-old boys, still very young. Chanura and Mustika were the two powerful wrestlers that Kamsa was hoping would once and for all take care of Krishna and Balaram. So Akrura, he came back as Keshava Bharati because he was responsible for taking Mahaprabhu away from Nadia, from Mayapur. And Kashi Mishra, when Mahaprabhu arrived in Puri, Kashi Mishra, who is none other than Kubja, because when Krishna and Balaram went to Mathura, Kubja became very much attracted to Krishna's beauty and invited him to spend some time in her own home, which the Lord agreed to do. I think Uddhava may have accompanied the Lord on that particular pastime. So that same Kubja, she appeared again as Kashi Mishra, because the Gambhira, the room in which Mahaprabhu stayed for the last 18 years of his life, that room was owned by Kashi Mishra. So these wonderful connections are all there in Chaitanya Vaishnavism. Different personalities who were there in Krishna's pastimes 4,500 years before did not want to miss out, and they appeared again on the Lord's invitation during the Lord's wonderful Gaura Lila. So, and of course, and in the Lord's Puri Lila, of course, we will get to that eventually, but still, we see how Mahaprabhu. Actually, it's said that if one wants to know Vaishnava etiquette, which we should all want to know, how to deal properly with one another, we should regularly read chapters from this Caitanya Caritamrta, because how the devotees in Mahaprabhu's circle associated with one another is very instructive, and how the Lord dealt so respectfully with all his devotees. So not that we just read Caitanya Caritamrita, somewhere between, I've heard 11,000 verses and 12,000 verses, different opinions there. Srimad Bhagavatam is 18,000 verses, with elaborate purports, commentary by Srila Prabhupada. And one very instructive pastime is how respectful Mahaprabhu was when he first arrived in Puri, and was taken to the home of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. And for 7 days, Lord Caitanya respectfully listened to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who was a great teacher of Vedanta in the day, and also logic, Nyaya. But specifically, Lord Caitanya did not utter one word for 7 days, while Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who was the incarnation of Brihaspati, the guru of the demigods, related Vedanta according to Shankaracharya's, we could say, misinterpretation. And that's very instructive in the sense that Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was Lord Chaitanya's senior in age, something akin to the Lord's own father, Jagannath Misra. So etiquette is such that if a more elderly or superior person is speaking, then a younger person gives them adopts respectful silence and just listens. And in the commentaries, it describes that to interrupt is a symptom of Rajaguna, mode of passion. Someone's trying to speak, and it's kind of like a New Year's resolution of mine: let people finish their sentences, don't interrupt. It's really rude, it's bad manners. We should try and do that as far as possible. So Mahaprabhu didn't say a word for 7 days, and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya became a little concerned. So eventually he stopped speaking and said, do you understand? Do you have any questions? And Mahaprabhu says, I understand Vedanta very well. It's your misinterpretation that I find baffling. And then there was discussion back and forward. And eventually Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya had an incredible realization, and Mahaprabhu revealed himself to the Bhattacharya in a 6-armed Sadbhuj form. 2 hands playing the flute as Govinda, Krishna. Another 2 hands holding bow and arrow, Lord Ramachandra. And the other 2 hands holding staff, which the Lord had received at his sannyas, and kamandalu, water pot, which sannyasis normally receive at the time of their sannyas. And at that point, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya just went into profound ecstasy and surrendered completely, understood who Caitanya Mahaprabhu was, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And of course, many of us, I'm sure, who've been to Puri have been to that same house, is still there. It's been maintained a little bit, nicely. Interesting fact, you may not know, there's actually a tunnel underground from Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's house that comes up right in front of the altar of Lord Jagannath. Hari Bol. But it hasn't been in use for hundreds and hundreds of years. Apparently it's full of cobras and scorpions, and it would cost millions of dollars to excavate. But there's a grill, there's a grate. Of course, us white-skinned fellows and ladies, we're not allowed in, so we can't see. But devotees, Indian body devotees who've been in it, there's a grate right in front of Lord Jagannath's altar, and it's said that Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya could walk from his own house underground and come up right in front of Lord Jagannath. So, and I do have it here somewhere on my many pages of notes. Hare Krishna, let's see. So these are some of the wonderful, wonderful pastimes of Mahaprabhu. We had a nice experience on Harinam Sankirtan last Sunday in Coolangatta, and Amsu Das Brahmachari is here. He can confirm. Our younger devotees did such wonderful kirtan. Haridas, Gopal, Krishna, and Nandu led the kirtan most of the way around. And then when we came back, and we were just waiting outside Govinda's for Vishnu Jan to organise free lunch cards. Haribol. Don't let anybody tell you there's no such thing as a free lunch. There is a free lunch if you come on Harinam. And while we were there, one nice gentleman walked past, and he walked up to Amsu and he gave Amsu $50, $50 bill. Boom, there you go. So we must have sounded okay. Isn't it, Amsu? And you put it in the hundi, right? Yeah, good man. I knew you'd do that. He doesn't need the money. Krishna's looking after him. So I thought that was $50 is a lot of money, even nowadays, what to speak of. So we see these wonderful modern-day pastimes of Lord Caitanya still going on. It was very ecstatic. It was very hot. But most of the time we go around is undercover. So people are appreciating, as Prabhupada has so wonderfully described in his introduction. And to this chapter, very important chapter. Let me just see, we've got a few minutes. I'll just try and find something. Nice festivals coming up already, Lord Nityananda's appearance day, and the 150th anniversary celebration of the appearance of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. For the rest of this month. Very, very, very nice. Prabhupada does mention here, and Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, even unclean Yavanas become perfectly well-bred gentlemen by chanting the holy name of the Lord. So on different occasions, Srila Prabhupada would be asked, either by his disciples or by favourable persons, what pleases him the most? What would please him the most? I know this question was asked in a meeting Prabhupada had with the book distributors in Melbourne many years ago, and it was asked by a book distributor, naturally. And book distributors back in the day knew how much the distribution of Srila Prabhupada's transcendental literatures pleased His Divine Grace. But everything pleased His Divine Grace. If there was one thing that Prabhupada did just mention on occasion, the only fault, if you like, that he had with his disciples was that they weren't reading his books enough. But Prabhupada fully understood how hard everyone was working to distribute his books, and also other services to establish temples, to keep and to preach, and to just the unlimited varieties of devotional service, to do magnificent paintings, to illustrate his books, which he referred to as windows into the spiritual world. So, but on these occasions, but Prabhupada would say, as he's mentioning here, that the thing that pleased him the most was if his disciples became perfect gentlemen and gentle ladies. And on one occasion, a scholar did ask Prabhupada a similar question: how can we recognize your followers? And Prabhupada said, he will be a perfect gentleman, a Vaishnava, perfect gentle lady. So, and just as bell metal can be converted into gold by an alchemical process, Similarly, we see that all over the world, persons who may, like ourselves, may have come from Mleccha Yavana background, we've given up all nasty, bad habits, and which are very difficult to give up in the normal estimation. But because we've gotten that elusive param drisva nivartante, the higher taste of bhakti is very elusive. It's very difficult to get, but it's very easy to lose due to offences, all sorts of offences we can commit if we're not careful. Nam aparad, Guru aparad, Vaishnav aparad, Seva aparad. So we have to be careful. Fools rush in where angels fear to tread. So much wonderful Vaishnava etiquette is there in this Caitanya Caritamrita, and we just have to give it as we've been doing. And I was thinking, it's been years now. If Krishna Kirtan was here, he could tell us when it was we actually started. But it's at least 3, 4, 5 years ago that on Saturdays and Sunday mornings we started, rather than 7 days of Bhagavatam classes, 5 days of Bhagavatam classes, and 2 days of Caitanya Caritamrita. So there's plenty more here, everyone, but shall I stop here to see if anyone has a question or a comment? Do we have a microphone? We do. Bhakta Mike is here.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, thank you so much for the class and talking about Caitanya Caritamrita. I have a question about this translation, and I say it in a very humble mood and not in a challenging way. It says, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, by whose mercy even unclean Yavanas become perfectly well-bred gentlemen. And we often say Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the most munificent, magnanimous form of Krishna. He's none different from Krishna, in the mood of Radharani, and so magnanimous. But when we look at Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, we often see that his main contacts for whom he's actually changed their lives and made them Vaishnavas were often those from class backgrounds. We see in South India, in Sri Rangashetra, in Rameshwaram, is usually the Sri Vaishnavas from the upper class Brahmana community. We see when he goes to the Mayavadi community in Varanasi, it's those, sannyas, Brahmin persons there. Potentially the lowest, you would say, quote unquote lowest, is the animals of Jharkhand forest. But otherwise, he would be quite strict with who he would meet. He wouldn't meet, for example, Maharaj Prataparudra because he was a king. He wouldn't meet women, obviously, because he was a sannyasi and wanted to uphold the ashram. But we see Lord Nityananda did go mass, where Lord Chaitanya went class. So is this verse, is the extension talking about Lord Nityananda Prabhu acting on behalf of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and that's where the mercy comes from? It would be great if you could speak about this.
Well, it's really good that you finished with that, Prabhu, because while you were, formulating that question, I was thinking how to answer it, and I was thinking, yes, it's true that Lord Chaitanya, exactly as I don't need to repeat it because you elaborated very nicely. Yes, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did go amongst many very aristocratic, scholarly personalities, but Nityananda Prabhu, he was sent back to Bengal. And yes, he distributed his mercy amongst many persons who weren't of Brahmin caste, or even what to speak of Kshatriyas. Saptagram. Saptagram means 7 villages, and this is really interesting and significant for us because it was Saptagram which was, once upon a time, a very wealthy town full of gold merchants and bankers. And Nityananda Prabhu Udarana Datta Thakur, he is described as the foremost assistant of Nityananda Prabhu, and he was from Saptagram. And he was a gold merchant, and he was a wealthy man. And he helped Nityananda Prabhu. There were Dwadasa Gopals. There were a number of eternally liberated cowherd associates of Krishna and Balaram from Goloka Vrindavan who took birth along with the two lords, and those personalities, many of them were from Bengal. And Udarana Datta Thakur, it's said that he actually had lands, he was very wealthy, and he devoted 10 acres to building big kitchens and prasadam halls, and he had dharmshalas for poor people to come and stay, and he organized mass prasadam distribution. And he actually came, and he was a very good cook himself, and he came and stayed in Jagannath Puri for a period of 6 months once with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So in that way, the mercy was spread. Yes, there were centers of great learning, like the Goswamis in Vrindavan and also Jagannath Puri. But in between, in Orissa and Bengal, yes, there were many persons. Narottam Das Thakur and Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur, they actually wrote a lot in either mostly the Bengali language, because members of the higher caste could not read Sanskrit. So a lot of their writings we find in simple Bengali language for the masses of people. And it's true that Bhakti Vinod Thakur and Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati also preached primarily amongst the higher castes, because that was what was needed during their time, from about 1850 on to Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati's, the end of his life, 1936, 1930, start of 1937. Because Mahaprabhu's teachings in many places they'd gone underground to a certain extent. There were many people still practicing, but the influence of the 13 upper sampradayas, Sahajiya groups, Sahajiya means those who take things very cheaply, they had risen to prominence. And apart from some very serious Vaishnavas who were practicing in solitude, there wasn't so much mass, broad-scale preaching of Mahaprabhu's teachings. So they took it upon themselves to attract, again, the higher echelons of society, because as Krishna says, whatever a great man does, common men follow, and whatever standards he sets by exemplary acts, all the world pursues. So they were very successful in converting back to Chaitanya Vaishnavism many of who were known as the Bengali intelligentsia of the time. In the first quarter, you could say, or third of the last century, and the 40 or 50 years before that. So I hope that's helpful. Something? All right. Any other questions, comments, or corrections? All right, thank you very much, everyone. Jai Sri Caitanya Caritamrta ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. And Prabhupada came, made the hippies into happies.